Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Beth Robinson, and I am the reading specialist at JRB. And I'd like to welcome you to the Title I ELA Virtual Open House. This is all brand new. This is something that I've never done before, but I'm hoping that I can provide you with about 15 to 20 minutes of information about Title I and the services we provide, as well as literacy development and what you can do at home to help your child in their literacy development. And then at the end, I would like to open things up for questions. This is a great format for asking questions about Title I or about literacy development. This is not the best forum for asking personal questions about your own child. If you do have questions about your own student and about their development, I would ask that you email me. I'd be happy to set up a conference with you, and then we can hash out whatever information it is you're looking for specific to your child. I just want you to know this is a public forum and it is being recorded. So it is not the place for personal, inquiries about your own child's literacy development. So I'd like to begin by actually defining what Title I ELA is. So ELA stands for English Language Arts, and that includes listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And so the Title I part is also something that confuses people sometimes. Title I is actually the name of a federal grant, and it is a grant that distributes money to school districts based on socioeconomic status. Title I is not a subject-specific class or type of instruction. It's not a type of teacher. It is truly just a form of funding. And so here in Ash West, the type of Title I funding that we have is called targeted assistance funding. And so what that means is that we provide support to a targeted selection of students to minimize the achievement gap. So here at Briggs, Title I ELA reading instruction is provided exclusively by me, and I am a certified K through 12 reading specialist. So this is all I do all day, every day. Okay, so I do have a script here that I'm following because I can tell you I could go on for hours and hours about literacy, and I'm going to try and keep it short tonight so that I can hit on some of the main topics that people ask me most about. So this next slide talks about the tiers of support that we offer in our school. Oftentimes, parents want to know where Title I instruction fits into their child's educational program. In this district, we provide a multi-tiered system of support, and Title I ELA is considered a Tier 2 support. So Tier 1 refers to the classroom instruction. It's provided to all students. But there are times, however, when a child may need more than what they are getting in Tier 1 instruction in order to be successful. And that's when we start talking about Tier 2. Tier 2 instruction can be provided by the classroom teacher. It can be provided by special education teachers. Sometimes it's provided by the paraprofessional staff, and other times it is provided through Title I. So Tier 2 instruction or intervention is actually a very broad, a broad area of support that we provide. And so the students who need support are getting it. They're not all getting it from Title I. So that's really where things are a little different. Now, if for some reason a child still needs additional support, that is when we would consider Tier 3, which is special education. In Tier 3, children have individualized education plans, and so that is a more specific form of support. Now, these three posters that you see on the screen, they talk about the how and why of RTI. RTI is the acronym for Response to Intervention. This refers to the fact that anytime a teacher provides instruction of any kind, They are looking to see how a student responds to that instruction. If a student is making appropriate gains with that instruction, we know that we are giving them the right level of support. If, however, a child is not meeting the expected gains and skill development, then it means we need to provide more support for that child. And that's why we have these different tiers of support available, because every child is likely to need a different level of support in order to be successful. So this leads us directly to the selection process for Title I. The selection process for who gets the Title I services in Tier 2 is dictated by an approved formula that includes data from the Acadience reading assessment, your student's reading level, and teacher recommendations. So each student receives a score that is then used to determine whether or not they qualify for Title I services. So our goal in this is to make sure that the students who are most in need of small group targeted intervention will be the ones that receive the Title I services. So we do this in the most fair way that we can, utilizing an approved formula. And so that is why sometimes students do receive Title I services and sometimes they do not. And that can change from year to year as well. So that is kind of the basics behind what Title I is and why we are providing different levels of support for students. So the key feature of Title I ELA support here at Briggs is the focus on early intervention. Here we go. Sorry, that's my dog. Okay, so the focus is on early intervention in grades K through 3 in order to help students reach grade level expectations and standards. And that really is the key to it all. Grade level expectations and standards. The goals in Title I are the exact same goals as in the classroom setting. So there is no difference. When students move to Tier 3 and have specialized and individualized goals, that is different than what we provide at Tier 2. Tier 2 is the same goals as the classroom. So this brings us now to exactly what the support is going to look like this year and what the expectations are. So clearly this year is different than any other. And due to the COVID situation, Title I will be provided virtually, at least for the foreseeable future. Clearly, we love in-school, in-class teaching, but at this time, by providing virtual support, we are actually able to add time in learning for the students who need it most. So children are getting time in the classroom setting with their classroom teacher. That's their Tier 1 instruction. Plus, now they are getting Tier 2 instruction through Title I. So this is our best way of adding rather than just replacing instruction, which is always our goal. We are always trying to add. So one of the things that happens within our meets is these small group meets are designed to be very interactive. So when your child is on a Google Meet for Title I would ask that they have their camera on and their microphone on. Now, I apologize for the inconvenience that this causes. I know that people feel very strongly about protecting their privacy. And it is not easy to have your child in a room where everything that is behind them can be seen and everything that's going on in the room can be heard. So what I highly recommend is that during our meets, you try to find a quiet spot without distractions where they can work, because they will be reading a lot out loud and I do need to be able to hear them. I will say that the hardest issue that I have faced so far in group time is the background noise. When you are talking in the same room as your student, we can hear what's being said. And so that really is the hardest thing. There is a way to minimize background noise on Google Meets. And at the end, during our question and answer period, I'd be happy to show that to you. Another thing about our Google Meets is that it would be incredibly helpful for students to have a work surface. We have letter tiles, we have writing that we want to do. If they have a place to put their work, that is going to be very helpful as well. That's going to allow them to do the work that they need to do. All students were provided with a Title I ELA little packet of supplies. If your child did not get their packet of supplies, I can get one to you, or I can tell you what types of supplies they will need during our group. You don't actually need the kit that I created in order to have everything you need. It's actually some very basic materials that I think you probably have at home that would work just as well. So if they are in a quiet area, they have the supplies necessary for our reading group, I think that that is really going to help us make the most of every second. My meets are not designed as a drop-in when you can office hour type situation. We start our meet all together and we make the best use of that time. So trying to get to our meet on time and keeping our focus throughout is really how we are going to see the greatest gains in everyone's reading ability. So certainly keeping distractions at bay would be great. Food, sometimes people need a quick snack, and that's certainly fine, but large meals or sloppy food that makes it difficult for them to read out loud, that is the type of thing that might be best to wait with, just so that we can really get to our meet and make the most of it. The classroom teachers do know that there are students who will be leaving classroom meets in order to be at a Title I meet. And that would be true for Title I ELA or Title I Math. And that's okay. The teachers know that and they are prepared for that. All right. I am going to put a little of my time towards literacy. Now, I could go on and on about this for quite some time, but I'm going to keep it short here. There are 5 components of early reading that are so important for our students: phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. So basically, I want you to know that every classroom teacher is teaching all 5 of these components within the classroom setting. This is standard best practices in teaching right now, and everyone is getting all 5 of these components. When a child is in an intervention group with me, though I am touching upon all 5 of these components, I am most often trying to fill gaps. I am trying to see exactly what a child needs in order to promote their reading ability. So oftentimes I am not working in all 5 of these areas. I am focused on exactly what a student needs. 9 times out of 10, it is phonics. So most often, if you overhear a meet, if you want to participate and be part of our meet and see what we're doing, it is primarily going to be phonics with the other components factored in. So I do have a couple slides for the other aspects of literacy instruction as well. And again, I'll go very quickly, but if you have questions about it, I'd be happy to answer whatever questions you have. So this first slide is about the phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness falls under the umbrella of phonological awareness. These are the skills that are sound-based literacy skills. These are not written literacy skills. And these are the types of sound-based skills that are actually quite fun to work on at home. So anytime that you can do rhyming or tongue twisters, songs, chants, playing around with sounds and manipulating sounds, that is going to help students when it comes to their reading. So, Sally sold seashells by the seashore, and different types of tongue twisters where you're using alliteration or rhyming. Miss Mary Mac, all dressed in black, black, black. There are so many ways that we can play with language with our children, and each and every time you do, it helps them to develop those skills of phoneme manipulation that they are now going to use when reading and writing. So that's actually the fun one. I like that quite a lot, and I do think it's a wonderful way to help students at home as well. Now, when it comes to phonics, that refers specifically to the teaching of letter sound associations and letter patterns to spell words. So phonics instruction assumes that a student understands the alphabetic principle, which is that the letters represent sounds in words, and they have phonemic awareness. Again, that sound-based skill that allows them to manipulate sounds. So basically, phonics is breaking the code. It is figuring out how to decode a word that they've never seen before. And this is really what is so important when they reach a level where they are working on multisyllabic words and complex content area words. If you've never seen a word before, you need the phonics to be able to decode it. This is the number one skill that I work on, and it is one of the most important skills as students continue through their education. Next would be fluency. So fluency refers to the automaticity and the prosody of reading. So though using phonics skills to decode words is of the utmost importance, there are several high-frequency words that can be memorized for quicker and easier reading. Fluency is assessed as words correct per minute, and reading rate has been proven to be very important. The more that a child's reading sounds like the way they speak, the easier it is for them to comprehend what it is they've read. So if your reading is very slow and very choppy, it is incredibly difficult to understand the story or the information that you're trying to get from the written text. So it is very important that children develop a fluency that allows them good comprehension. And that does bring us directly, oh no, that brings us to vocabulary first, then comprehension. So vocabulary is a very important element of reading, because every time a child learns more words, interesting words, content area words, they have more to draw from. They have prior knowledge that they can now insert into their own reading. So providing children with a literacy-rich environment and content area learning opportunities will help develop large vocabularies. And the larger a child's vocabulary, the easier they will have reading, the easier time they will have reading. One of the best ways to develop a large vocabulary for children is to read out loud to children. When you read out loud to children, it develops their vocabulary. Also, having interesting conversations with your children. It is so important. If you're outside and they're interested in the leaves that are falling off the trees, if you know something about deciduous trees, go for it. Use the big words. Use the information that you know. Do you have an interest in dog breeds? Can you talk about all different types of dogs? Can you talk about being a carpenter or a nurse, or things that are of interest and have incredible vocabulary opportunities that students otherwise wouldn't have exposure to? We want to expose our students to as much vocabulary as possible. So then from there, we do finally get to comprehension. When I think of comprehension, I think of it in two different ways. On the right-hand side of this slide, it talks about the comprehension framework. This is the very typical understanding of what you read. What's happening in the text? What did I know about before that I now can bring to this text for understanding? And how do I relate to this information? This is the very standard way of thinking about comprehension and the understanding of what you're reading. But there is another element to comprehension that really factors in once you get to about third grade and beyond, and that is the figurative components of literature. So there is a lot of figurative language that we come across in books, and when students are struggling to read, this is often a missed component. They have difficulty understanding figurative language. So for an example, if the author writes, "The moon was as round as an owl's eye." Now, we know that to mean there was a full moon. The moon was as round as an owl's eye. But when you start talking to a student about that sentence, and they were struggling to read the words in that sentence, all of a sudden they start talking about a story where there's an owl flying in the night sky, and the owl sees the moon. And all the while, you're sitting there saying, "Oh, wait a minute, honey, there is no owl in this story." And it's because a figurative element was added in for enjoyment of reading, and yet they haven't picked up on that yet. Now, that's one of the times when fluency, again, will play a big part in understanding. If you're reading all those words individually, and you get the owl, and you get the eye, and you get the night, you're not really putting it all together. So when it comes to comprehension, we really want to take a full look at what it is they need to know, what it is students need to know when they're reading about either informative text or literature and stories, and how things are being said so that they are able to take that information and put it into the greater context of what it is they're learning about. So let's see, that leads us to what can we do at home? A lot of times people will ask, what should I do at home to help my student read? And there are several ways that you can help your child improve their reading skills at home, but truly the most important thing is to read to your child. Read to your child even after they are able to read to themselves. So many people stop reading to their children once children have some reading skills of their own, but it truly is important to continue that practice for as long as they will let you. My own children were probably in middle school, and they were so ready for mom to stop reading, I can tell you that. So it is so important to really read to your children every day and to share your interests. This is the whole vocabulary building part of it. Taking time to share information that will help give them the background knowledge and the exposure to things that will aid in their reading development down the road. Also, I would say definitely play with books and, the words, and play word games and such, like the Phonemic Awareness type activities, and let them choose books that are truly of interest to them. Children want to pick things that they connect to. And if the book that they've chosen is too hard for them to read it to them. But don't deny them the opportunity to really delve into topics that are really of interest to them. Because the more they want to read something, the more effort they will put in towards developing those phonics-based skills that will let them decode the words in there. So keep reading as fun as possible at home and really help your children to love reading as much as possible. I know I can teach skills, but their love of reading is definitely going to come from you at home.